What's going on, everybody? This is David from the HowToKDJ podcast. And today I have a freaking spicy topic to talk about, as I always do, but today most especially because today's topic is a little bit bonkers. And I'll explain why, immediately. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's just get into it. So I just realized, we just figured out something very recently, and this is like as of August last year. This was published on different websites and a lot of different places, on different magazines or different news places. I know a lot of people that check out science-based, news, but I'm a freaking nerd, I guess. But like, something big has happened, right? Something very big, and you have to, come over here. Listen, okay? If you're driving, stop driving. Like, just stop. You have to listen to this. Just don't listen to me, please. Please keep driving. Please don't crash, okay? Be safe. Be safe. Scientists have created a brain, an actual functioning human brain that they call a brain organoid in a lab from stem cells. Is that enough information for you to go, wow, amazing? Or is that to an average person, is that like, Because I don't know how people react to information like this. How does your brain not just explode when you realize stuff like this? This is not little news. This is not small. This is world life-changing big news, okay? If you're 22 years old like me, by the time you're 50, do you know what this news means? We can have brothers and sisters, if we accept them, that are created in a lab from stem cells. And for those of you who don't understand what stem cells are, first of all, let's break everything down. So stem cells are pretty much the foundation, the building blocks of organisms, of living things. For animals, they have plant tissues, they have plant cells. For human beings, we have, our organic cells, and organic cells are usually like sort of circular shaped, and they have the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. Everyone knows that. But did you also know that the mitochondria is like the main sustainable part of the cell, and the fact that it has all the DNA, everything, all the features, everything that keeps a cell like being an organism, a living thing, it has all of that just inside that cell. So what did scientists do? They were like, so if a human being is just created of this, and for those of you who don't know, this is like such the foundation that this cell, this particular kind of cell, is such the foundation that it's not like your brain has a special kind of stem cell, your lungs have it. No, it's all the same. It's the same cell. The reason you have different parts of your body that function different ways is how the cells interact with each other. It's like atoms when you think about it, because every atom is the same thing. It's proton, neutrons, and a nucleus. That's it. An electron, sorry. Protons, neutrons in the nucleus, and an electron spinning around it. That, or more than one electron spinning around. That's it. That's pretty much it. That's an atom. That's exactly what it is. So that's the entire universe. Protons, neutrons mixed together to make a nucleus. And what? Electrons, or an electron. If it's one electron, it's hydrogen. If it's two electrons, it's helium. The whole periodic table and all that stuff. I'm not going to impress you with how much I know about chemistry, whatever. That's boring, basic nonsense. But we created a brain. Now, let's break everything down, because that's the whole point of this podcast anyway. I'm not going to just tell you facts and be like, wow, can you see this? This is pretty cool, right? And not explain anything. That's kind of my whole thing. I try to make sure knowledge is as accessible as possible for the average person, in my opinion. So let's get down to brass tacks, okay? First of all, these scientists took these stem cells, which I said are the building blocks of the human being, and went, okay, what if we gave this stem cell, this basic cell, which, to be fair, another side tangent before I get deep into this, stem cells are technically from, how do I put this? They're from young human organisms, or young organisms in general. If you want stem cells from an adult, usually those stem cells are already cultured, in a way. It's kind of like trying to get like fresh cement from a building that has existed since the 1800s, compared to a building that was created right now. Think about it like that, or a building that's about to be made. So yeah, that's the thing. When we get stem cells, we really get stem cells from like fetuses, unborn children, small, they're organisms basically. So we take stem cells from that because that's before those cells are now put into the work that now, hey, now you do this and you do this and do this, and then they all function as a human being. So by the way, that's how stem cells usually are gotten. We've probably already found ways to synthesize stem cells at this point. Probably not just news yet because it's still experimental, but whatever. I feel like this is a thing probably people can already do. Whatever. Let's get into it. Okay, so think about this. Those are stem cells, right? Then a human being, some dude, some guy, went ahead and was like, hey, why don't we take these things and just give them information? And just, see if we can actually give cells, just basic cells, information. Why? Because if you can do that, what does that mean? You can teach it. It's like kind of training the dog. This is pretty much how we started training pets. It was pretty much a human being that saw wild animals, was like, maybe the wild animal showed a little bit, like they figured out, hey, this wild animal is also just trying to take care of itself, just like us. They're just usually bigger and stronger, or like faster and, sharper, and like sharp teeth and stuff, so they are more vicious. And they're also hungry, so they need food. So maybe one guy was like, hey, why don't we take these wolves, wink. Let me do that again. Wolves, wink. I don't know if you can see my eyeballs for those of you watching, I don't know, whatever. But like, let's take these wolves, like animals, these wolves, and see if we can train them, see if they listen, see if we can instruct them to do things. Maybe we can tell, maybe the way it actually worked in real life is the wolves and human beings kind of ran away from some natural disaster together, and then the wolves felt, indebted to the human beings. Maybe something like that happened. Maybe something fun, Disney like that. I don't know. Or it could just be straight up that we just experimented. Maybe we just went, hey, what if I try to instruct this wolf to do a thing? Would it do it? And then it tried, and it did it. And lo and behold, they were like, hey, we can train these wolves. We can train these animals. Who knows? Maybe wolves weren't even the first thing. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was more cat-like. Maybe cats were their first pets. Who knows? Whatever. But like, this is basically how stem cell research works. They trained, they tried, they tested if they can give instructions to the cell, and they were like, hey, we can do that. How do you look at that? Look, we can do that. We can instruct cells. So what happens next? What if we instructed the cell to build more of itself? Oh, that's insane. How do you do that? You give it ingredients. You give it juice. Give it food. You feed the cell. And I'm breaking everything very anthropomorphized because I'm like, you know what? Let's make it fun in a way, because obviously science is very boring when you try to break things down realistically. But let's make it kind of fun. So this is pretty much what they did. They were like, okay, so we can probably do these things. We can probably make organisms. We can probably like tell these cells to do all these things. Okay, cool. So what do we do next? They went, okay, fine. Now that we understand, we can tell these cells. Let's tell these cells to make, let's feed these cells and grow them and instruct them to create an organ. Just try, just see how it looks, see how it works, see if anything crazy happens, and maybe in a couple of years we can make a brain. I don't know. That's too much. That's too futuristic. Maybe not in our lifetime. Oh, but they did that, and what happened? What happened after? They created a brain, right? The brain, for those of you who, I don't know how someone wouldn't know this, the brain is literally the most complicated, most complex organ in the entire human body. And look, I have to explain stuff like this, even though some people will be like, come on, everybody knows that. But trust me, there are people who don't even know that the brain is an organ, okay? So don't even come to me about that whole people already know this thing. Some people don't know this, okay? So someone went ahead and just said, let's instruct these cells to make a brain. And the cells went, giddy up, let's do this. And they did it. Oh my God, they freaking did it. And look, the whole thing is, okay, the study basically is human-induced I have to repronounce. Human-induced pluripotent stem cells called iPSCs can be used to generate brain organoids. So they're human-induced and they're stem cells, and they created brain organoids. The reason they're called organoids, again, is because they are man-made, first of all, and the fact that they are not full organs yet. They're not like the full thing. They haven't created an entire brain with its nerve connections there. Because technically, if you really understand how the brain works, the brain technically is not just that thing on top of your head. It also has nerve cells connected to it, because it's kind of like saying, how do you explain what I don't know, what will I use, like a laptop is, if you can't charge it, if it doesn't have a port to take in information or to pass out information, what's a laptop then? Because if you can't take in information, if you can't charge it, you can't connect anything to it, then it's kind of useless because it just dies out. There's no way to keep it going. Or maybe you have to keep replacing the battery, or whatever. That was a terrible analogy. But just try to understand, the brain is not anything if it can't connect to the rest of your body. So the nerves are also part of the brain. And yes, we are still getting to the point where we can add all those things, because the brain is made up of a lot of stuff. There's the hippocampus, the medulla oblongata, there's different parts of the brain. So all these things haven't been fully made yet, but this is because we're in the early phases of this. And these stem cell researches aren't getting as much funding as they should. And this is the thing, right? Okay, now let's get into the parts of this video that I was like, okay, this is getting very testy, which is the ethical parts of this, right? So yes, now scientists can make brains. Okay, cool. What else can they make? If they can build a brain, and yes, this is a freaking brain that functions, you can instruct it to do things. Scientists have literally experimented with nerve cells. There was a nerve cell that they created a long time ago to work and play a game. It literally beats a game in under 5 minutes. I forgot what the game is, but pretty much the way it technically works is that they kind of just made it send impulses if it notices something that's triggered by the game itself. So basically, to do a thing when it's basically like code. It's code. It's literally code information. But again, that is technically how the brain works. Let's not get into too deep into this. But now, okay, fine, we can make a brain. Okay, we can make all these things. What points do you get to when you can start questioning the ethics of this, right? Which is the sensitive part of human nature, where we're like, okay, part of human nature is sensitivity, to be fair. That's what differentiates us from, machines and stuff, because we are sensitive. But at the same time, I like to argue against that fact. Why? Not just because I feel like saying no, and because I feel like making my opinions on stupid things. No, it's because when you argue that human beings are characterized by emotion, and then just really think about that. What is an emotion? A lot of us will go, an emotion is just it's a thing you feel. No. Emotions are based on code. Now let's break down what I just said. That probably just make people go, huh? What the hell do you mean by that? This is what I mean. Code is pretty much programming. It's yes or no. It's logic. That's how logic works. It's ones and zeros. In computer forms, in binary forms, it's ones and zeros, or yes and no. The thing about emotion is, the reason you feel a certain way about a thing is because your brain has been trained with a certain programming or code. Your brain has been trained to feel a certain way based on a certain input or data. Or technically datum, because datum is a singular of data, whatever. All those, I don't know why they create all these words and just make people confused. Whatever, this is English language. But look, this is the thing. Because the brain has these programs, because it has all this data, what happens? It feels, the word feel, like senses things, and then reacts. It responds in certain ways that can be categorized as emotions. It feels angry for certain things that were passed in as information and then made the brain to react a certain way based on what it already knows. The reason you feel disgust, same thing. The reason you feel like something tastes a certain way is not just because your tongue does a thing. No, it's because the tongue has made your brain figure out what that thing tastes like based on programming. If you grew up and someone taught you that lemon, for example, was actually a sugary taste, and that sugar was a sour taste, you would believe that. If you didn't have any other way to like ration out that information and understand that, yeah, the person is basically twisting things, you would believe that. And a lot of us know this. A lot of us know that there are times when you grow up and you learned something when you were very little and you were like, this is how things work. And then you found out later on that your parents are probably just lying to you, or that your friend in school lied to you and he was just telling you that thing because it was, I don't know, he was pranking you or something. The reason we feel that way is because of information. Is because you just learned the thing and then realized. So like, when you put that same thing into human terms, what happens? What do you realize? You realize something crazy. And this is the point of this video, is that it's programmed. When you can program a brain into doing all sorts of information, to do all these things, what happens? You just, like, you've broken down humanity. Humanity doesn't now feel like an essence and a whole, sci-fi, no, not sci-fi, like more of a spiritual or, that kind of feeling. It doesn't feel that way anymore. It doesn't feel soulful. It just feels like a program. And that has its good sides and bad sides. What are the good sides and bad sides? Let's break everything down. The reason why I brought this whole topic in the first place as well is because I'm like, okay, so we can do these things, right? Cool. But that's not it. That's not all. There is a big deal, a very, very big deal included here. And that big deal is that at what points, this is the first question of my ethical questioning journey in this entire video. At what points do you go, that's not a human being anymore? You know that feeling where you're like, no, but this was created by this was stem cell research. This was a bunch of globulated stem cells that kind of functions like a human being. And maybe even we get to the point where we can create skin organ and then we can make everything into, and then we've created a human being. Oh my God, we have human beings now. What point do you go, that's different, right? Because according to people, like if you looked at this thing with conscience ethics, in case you don't understand ethics, there are different types of ethics, there are different types of understandings of philosophy and stuff. But if you went into a specific type of ethics, you would realize, wait a minute, what makes the cells that I produce from my balls, I don't know, for guys, or the woman's ovaries, what makes those cells human? Is it the fact that we feel like, oh, I made that, so it's probably human? Or is it the fact that it can function as a human being? Ooh. Think about that. Because how do we now know what's real human and what's not real human when they both function as human beings? And this is not even the AI conversation, because I had a conversation a little bit in the past where I talked about AI versus humanity, and I was like, yeah, technically, you can make that argument as well for AI, but some people will be like, you know what, I'll categorize that as silicon-based life forms because it's not carbon-based. So let's just say carbon is the ground. You're creating carbon-based life forms now. This is not AI anymore. Excuse me. This is not AI. This is carbon-based life forms. You're creating life by doing what? By doing it the God way, the God way, in quote unquote, which is pretty much you programmed that life in. You did that, with your hands. You literally programmed, you coded that into existence. You get to a point where you're like, okay, now how do I differentiate what's real human, what's a real human being from what's a man-made human being, because that's the only way I can differentiate when I'm saying it. But how do you differentiate that at that point? Because this isn't the AI versus humanity debate. I've made a video about that in the past. This isn't okay, for AI versus humanity, how people can differentiate and say okay, AI is technically silicon-based life form, so that's silicon, that's not a human life, that's more of a silicon life. Pretty much it's made out of ingredients that are not human organic, like carbon and stuff. But this is completely different because it's this is now a human being. This is just a person. You pretty much just created a person without doing it the way we normally do it. And what's weird is it's not like you're dropping in things from outside, you're outsourcing the ingredients for human beings. No, it's from what you would use to make a person, except that you're not making it you're not mixing sperm, egg, and doing all that and incubating. No, you're just creating bits of a human person. It's like the Frankenstein way. but like real Frankenstein. Like we're getting there, and it's insane to think about. I don't know. It's to a lot of people, they might look at this like, okay, this is on its own pocket. You know, this is its own thing. But my argument is like the same way we try to argue against like things like global warming and all this stuff that we know will affect people, but probably not our generation, but it will affect people very, very soon, is the same way I'm thinking about it. It's kind of like, this is something that's going to be a big deal very soon. Like, we're going to get to a point where you have an organ that's failing, you replace it. You just kind of buy a new one. And yeah, obviously all of these things are going to be, prime, going to be rich only kind of stuff. But it's getting to be available. And that's insane. Like, that's just crazy. And also think about the implementations for bad people. People that want to like, imagine someone wants to like, blackmail you and say, okay, we have like an organ, and maybe they use samples or blood cells from someone else, like from, I don't know how you can use this. I'm not really a great writer for like, drama, thrillers and stuff. But like, think about it. Imagine you wanted to like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? But pretty much blackmail someone and say, okay, now this person is an organ trafficker or something, and this is exactly where they got the organ from. You wanted to impose all these things, and then you were able to generate an organ. Like, obviously, this is a big futuristic, weird tangent, but like, you're able to make an organ and then put in like blood and cells and stuff from a different person that's dead, maybe that you killed, and you're trying to put the blame on someone else. I don't know. It's just crazy because like these are so many things. The same way, very soon in courts of law, we're no longer going to be allowing video evidence because that's something that's getting crazier and crazier and easier to manipulate. That's going to be how it's going to get to a point where you can't even tell what's what. How do you live a society where you can't tell what's quote unquote real from what's man-made? Which is where this is where I'll conclude with. Like, I'm not really technically at the end, but I'm going to conclude with something. This is something I've always thought of whenever I had this debate in my mind. I'm like, okay, technically, what makes a human being is not what a human being is made of. It's what human beings think a human being is made of. If you get what I'm saying, like, try to understand what I mean. When a human being is called human, it's called that because a human being, another person, decided, I will name this thing or this organism or this person human. It's kind of the same argument a lot of people have for gender assignment. They're like, that's why some people do this thing where they're like, the cisgendered person is a person who was assigned a gender by birth. By a doctor at birth. I don't know, it's a very stupid debate. Like, I'm always like, look, if you want to care, then you shouldn't care. Like, I don't know what I'm saying, but pretty much the tangent to that is the fact that people say they don't care about their gender assignments, but you want to change your gender. Why are you changing it if you don't care? Why can't people just call you whatever? Or just call you by your name all the time? Then some people will go for the they, them thing, but I'm like, isn't they, them technically just becoming a gender assignment at this point? Whatever. But like, this is the thing. So back to what I was saying. If a human being basically assigned that term human to another person, we just assign that. That's what scientists do. They assign names to things and they discover things, find out things, like break things down and assign names to them so that we can always use that to communicate. That's how communication works. The problem is when the average person re-engineers that, reverses that and says, this thing is human because this. Yes, that makes sense, and that's how communication works, but there is a problem there, right? There's a big problem in communication in general, which is this thing, and I'm going to talk about this communication thing in another video because this is an important topic, is the fact that when you name something and people think anything that's related to that thing you named is the same as that thing you named at first, it kind of causes confusion because a human being is pretty much just a living being made up of organs. The human organs, the things that we have, looks like structured like a human being would be and has human DNA. That's human being. If you create that, no matter how you create that, it's still a human being. So like, it's logic. 1 + 1. It's straight up. If this, so therefore this. That's exactly what human beings are. If organs, skin, shape, DNA, human. So therefore, I make organs, skin, shape, DNA, therefore human. That's exactly what it is. origin shouldn't matter. But that's the thing. That's the tidbits. I won't say problem, but that's the thing. That's the spice that makes things right in some people's minds. Is the fact that people go ahead and say, no, these things are not human. Why? Because they didn't come from humans. Because they didn't come from the same place we came from. Us regular, human beings before stem cell research. We didn't come from the same place. And that's what's crazy about it. Is the fact that like people have that, I don't know what's the best way to put it. It's not an instinct. It's more of like a tradition or a culture. I don't know. It's a mental, like, it's just this. Is this thing? God, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with my brain right now. I'm not able to think up the words I'm trying to look for, to pinpoint this and make it sound snappy and cool. But like, we just have this thing, I'll say this thing, in our brains that just make us feel a certain way because of how we I don't know, how we're brought up, because of our understanding of analogies. We put like nostalgic passion for some things that literally don't make sense logically, but make sense to us because it's like that's what we understand. That's what we see as passion. That's why a lot of the times, if you look at movies that have like a mad scientist, what's always the mad scientist thing? Is the fact that he doesn't have nostalgia. He doesn't have sentiments. That's the word I was looking for. Sentiments. We have sentiments. The average human being has sentiments. You have a sentimental feeling that, oh, this person created me, so therefore I owe everything to this person. My parents created me, and so therefore my parents basically own me until I'm 18, which is societal implementation. But like, they created me, so like they are gods to me. It's kind of like that. That's pretty much how it is. And yes, they do take care of you and stuff. And that's the same thing for these stems. We're like, okay, wait, so now we can create human beings. If we create those human beings, technically they are not born. They're not born like human beings are regularly born, but they are still human beings. And that's crazy because now some people will be like, no, you're not really a human being because you didn't originate from the same place I originated from. And now we're going to get into this new thing where it's not going to be racism anymore. It's going to be like speciesism. Oh, God, that sounds very horrible to say. Speciesism, Because we're like, okay, scientists might decide, to differentiate, we won't call these human beings, we'll call them humanoids. I don't know, something like I said before. But like, imagine that's where we led to. That we now have these things that are like human beings, but they're not exactly human beings. Then what happens? That means those things kind of they take over what we would now have. Like that's now where we are. We're now like at a point where we have human beings, kind of like, imagine X-Men, pretty much. That's basically what I'm trying to explain. Except that in X-Men, those mutants, what they call the mutants, they have special abilities and stuff, and that's what makes them kind of dangerous. In this kind of case, I'm not even looking at a form of life where those human beings are engineered perfectly. Let's say they were engineered just like a regular human being. They can grow up the same way we grew up. They can do whatever. Well, we call them like humanoids, just for differentiation, so that scientists can be like, okay, this is a special thing when people try to name stuff, because you are your center of origin, and anything else to you is alien, like the word alien, because a person comes into your place, you call the person an alien, even though to that person, you are an alien. I don't know where I'm going with this, but pretty much what I'm saying is, it's going to be a chicken and the egg thing where we're like, okay, so now these are humanoids. So technically they are created in a different way from us. But now that also leads people to think, oh, that means these people are not worth being treated like human beings. So like, I don't know, it's just going to be a very weird future coming up. And boy, oh boy, it's going to be crazy. Like, it's going to be fun, like, to look at, to observe. But at the same, like, that's what I always do. Everything looks fun to observe to me, which is why I talk about these things. But I don't know, it's just crazy to think of, and it's an interesting, fun future we have coming ahead. And I don't know how you guys will feel about these things, because it's insane, it's dangerous, but at the same time, it's pretty fun. And I hope that was fun. I hope that was an interesting conversation to have, with me, even though you didn't say anything. I hope that was an interesting one-way conversation, I guess. It's a fun topic, and please try to discuss this with other people, because like, at what point, like, would you agree to just share the world with them, like, as regular people? Or is that going to be very annoying, knowing that this person wasn't created the same way you were created? And also, yes, scientists would definitely prefer to just make the perfect human being without flaws. So that does technically mean that these people could be made in a way that they are actually flawless. And that doesn't mean they will be perfect, but it means they wouldn't have, like, you know, those basic small things that we might have, like ADHD, mental paralysis, or sleep paralysis, little bits of like weird stuff that happens to us. Maybe they won't have any of those things. Maybe people will be jealous. Like, I don't know. It's gonna be crazy, and it's a fun discussion. Just, I don't know. Talk to your friends about this. If you don't want to, then don't. You know, don't sound like a nerd because I said you should. But this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, enjoyed this topic. Stay gorgeous, stay beautiful, and as always, get out of here.